Give it to me now. Give it to me now. I wanna pick you for your runs and your throws. And I wanna score all the points, even defense field goals. And I wanna listen to the show. I don't wanna leave. If you haven't guessed, it's about your fantasy football team. What? Oh, like you could do better. This is the Fantasy Sideline Show on ESPN Detroit. Here's your host, Dennis Farrell.
All right, I'm back again with another video blog. This time I have a subject that I want to broach. Guys, as of November 9th, 2012, I am calling for every fantasy player to trade Calvin Johnson. I know, I just said it. Oh my gosh, everybody's having a cow. How can you say trade Calvin Johnson? Guys, here's the thing about Calvin, and I'm going to try to be as gentle as possible, but right now, his name value outweighs his production. The guy is 19th overall in standard leagues with fantasy points. He is dealing with injuries. He's got nerve trouble. He's got knee troubles. He has, I think he's like fourth in yards, fourth or fifth in yards. No, he's third in yards with 767 yards. The two guys in front of him, Reggie Wayne and Brandon Marshall, have 110 and 118 fantasy points respectively. Calvin has 79. So when people come up to me and say, Dennis, how can you say trade Calvin Johnson? The guy's third in the league in yards. I say there's a big difference between 110 and 118 and 79 points. The guy behind him, Demaryius Thomas, with 736, that's 20 yards exactly, has 91 fantasy points. Wes Welker has 81. These are guys that are outperforming Calvin Johnson. And now I know if you live in the Detroit area and everybody watching this video doesn't, he still has name value. If you throw Calvin Johnson in a trade, his name value outweighs his production. To give you an idea of what Calvin Johnson has done over the season so far, he's got 400-yard games in 10 weeks almost. The last one came November 4th against Jacksonville, where he had 129 yards, which was a good game. Fell 1 yard short of getting a touchdown. Tragic, I get it, but it still didn't get the touchdown. One touchdown, by the way, on the season, might I add. You know, his last 100-yard game came week 6 against Philly, and before that, it was week 3 and week 1. Guys, Calvin Johnson is a beat-up animal. He's not the same Calvin Johnson as last year. You can blame it on the Madden curse. I won't blame you. I won't get mad. That's not what I'm blaming it on. I'm blaming it on the Lions having the same offense they had last year. This is a league where people catch on quick. And right now, before you're stuck holding the Calvin Johnson bag, where, you know, he could easily miss games down the line, he could easily be out for the rest of the season. Nerve damage, that doesn't sound like ticky-tack kind of injuries. Listen, he's a guy that likes to fight through pain. I get it, but he's not producing for you. I run into a lot of people that tell me, hey, I've had him this long, I might as well stick with him. That's great. If you keep getting kicked in the balls week in and week out, do you still open the door and get kicked in the groin and say, well, guess what? I've done it this far, I might as well continue? No, you don't. Fantasy football is about getting a player that produces. And right now, Calvin Johnson's not the guy to do it. Coming off a 129-yard game, maybe you will find someone to sucker into, you know, picking up on the upside. But you look at that playoff schedule, if your championship is in Week 17, he plays Chicago, for God's sakes. Arizona is not a horrible defense. He plays them in Week 15. Week 12, Houston, Minnesota already. He played Minnesota once this season, 54 yards and no touchdowns. This is a schedule that is not going to be beneficial for the guy, and I get it. I could eat crow, and he could have, you know, an amazing rest of the season. But what is Calvin Johnson's upside? Are you going to gamble your fantasy playoffs away on a guy right now who has the upside? I know, it's Calvin Johnson. It's ludicrous, but even great players have down years, and this is Calvin Johnson's down year. And it's time, guys, to cut bait with him, to say, you know what? Let him be someone else's problems. Because that injury report's not going to get any better for the guy. Nerve damage, he's dropping touchdowns. This is not the Calvin Johnson. This is like dropping his prime right now, guys. So I'm telling you right now, there is not riding off into the sunset. There is not sunny days ahead for this guy. This is going to be a disaster of a season. Maybe 2 more 100-yard games this season, at best. 4 touchdowns total is my guess. This, you know what? Let him be someone else's problem, and you can get great trade value. That's my rant. That's why you need to cut bait with Calvin Johnson, guys. Right now, it's do or die for the guy, and he still has value based on name, based off coming off the 129-yard games. Maybe people will forget the Week 7, Week 8 debacles where he has 34 yards and 46 yards. Pray to God. That's all I'm saying. Wow, there you go. Video blog, throwing Calvin Johnson under the bus. I've gotten a lot of heat for this, but guys, I'm here to help you win fantasy football games, and hanging on to Calvin Johnson right now may not be the best route to go. If you want to hear more, you can find us on ESPN Detroit 1090 Sunday mornings 10 to noon Eastern Standard Time, blogtalkradio.com/fantasy sideline show Thursdays, Mondays 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, chat room phone lines. You've heard hopefully the promotion video. We're around. Facebook us, guys. Fantasy Sideline Show. Post on there. Tell us you heard the video blog, whether you agree or disagree. Listen, trade deadline is coming up November 16th in most leagues. That means Sunday the 11th, we'll do a trade deadline show for you guys. Then we'll hit the podcast on the 12th and 15th with more trade deadline talk. We're going to help you guys figure out who do you want to target, who are you going to sell, and who are you holding tight on. Because Calvin Johnson, to me, is a sell. So hopefully your buddies didn't see this video, because I don't think he bounces back this season. He may have 1 or 2 good games, and, the Calvin Johnson lovers will go, hey, guess what, Dennis? Against Indianapolis, he had 120 yards and a touchdown, and then maybe I can point to Houston, Green Bay, and Minnesota and go, maybe he has a combined 100 yards in those 3 games and no touchdown. So, you know what? Hopefully you guys will listen. Cut bait with Calvin Johnson right now. I'm doing you a favor. Like I said, you can find us everywhere, fantasysidelinесhow.com, and let us know you're watching the videos. Thanks, guys.